Top 10 Women Who Escaped Prison and What Happened Next. Welcome back to Twisted Tales. When we hear about daring prison breaks, the spotlight usually falls on famous male escapees. But history tells a different story, one filled with bold, complicated, and often controversial escapes carried out by women. Some were driven by desperation, others by loyalty, fear, or the hope of a second chance. Today, we're counting down 10 of the most remarkable prison escapes by women along with what ultimately happened to them. These stories are based on documented historical accounts and court records, and they've been updated with the latest available information. Let's begin. Number 10. Deborah Gavin in 1974. Deborah Gavin walked away from the Georgia Women's Correctional Institution in Baldwin County. She had been serving time for armed robbery, and prior attempts to escape had failed. But this time she succeeded and vanished. For more than 3 decades, under the name Deborah Murphy, she built an entirely new life in Texas. She married, had 2 children, and worked as a nurse. By all appearances, she had quietly reintegrated into society. In 2007, authorities finally located her after 33 years. What followed surprised many. Gavin claims she fled due to severe sexual abuse and harassment inside the prison. Her claims echoed allegations made in lawsuits during the 1990s. Public support quickly grew. Letters were sent to Georgia officials urging leniency. Ultimately, Georgia chose not to pursue extradition, effectively closing the case. Gavin remained in Texas, and her story became part of a broader conversation about prison reform and inmate safety. Number 9. Margaret B. Smith in 1974. Margaret B. Smith was serving a 4-year sentence in North Carolina for writing fraudulent checks totaling just over $200. Near the end of her sentence, she was placed in a halfway house. That's when she disappeared. Smith later said she left after receiving troubling news about her 7-year-old daughter. She never publicly revealed the details, but she claimed she felt she had to protect her family. She lived quietly for decades, first in Florida under the name Margaret Vallius, then back in North Carolina. In 2015, more than 40 years later, an FBI task force located her. She was taken into custody at age 68. Given her age, health, and lack of further criminal activity, the case was resolved without her returning to long-term incarceration. Her story highlights how even minor crimes can follow someone for a lifetime. Number 8. Lynette "Squeaky" Fromm. Lynette Fromm became widely known as a devoted follower of Charles Manson. Although she was not directly involved in the 1969 Manson murders, she remained loyal to him. In 1975, Fromm attempted to approach President Gerald Ford while armed. The firearm did not discharge, and no one was injured. She was sentenced to life in prison for attempted assassination. In 1987, she escaped from a federal prison camp in West Virginia. Authorities later determined she left in an attempt to reach Manson, who she believed was seriously ill. She was captured just 2 days later. Fromm remained incarcerated until 2009, when she was released on parole after serving more than 30 years. She has kept a low profile since her release. Number 7. The Niantic 5. In 1984, 5 women escaped from Connecticut's Niantic Correctional Institution, the state's primary prison for women at the time. The facility had an open campus design, and the women managed to squeeze through a narrow window opening. The spacing between the bars was astonishingly tight, less than 8 inches apart. Their freedom didn't last long. All 5 were captured within 10 days. The escape led to significant security upgrades at the facility and renewed scrutiny over infrastructure at women's prisons nationwide. Sometimes the boldest escapes are also the short. Number 6. Judy Lynn Heyman. In 1977, 23-year-old Judy Lynn Heyman escaped from Michigan's Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility. She had been serving a sentence for attempted retail theft. Then she disappeared for 37 years, living under the name Jamie Lewis. She built a life in California. In 2014, authorities rediscovered her identity through updated database technology and coordination between agencies. Heyman's attorney presented court records showing she had voluntarily contacted law enforcement years earlier, believing the matter had been resolved. A judge ultimately sentenced her 2 times served, and she was released. Her case illustrated how record-keeping gaps in the 1970s allowed some fugitives to remain undetected for decades. Number 5. Samantha Lopez. Samantha Lopez was serving a 50-year federal sentence for bank robbery when she met fellow inmate Ronald McIntosh in the 1980s. In 1986, McIntosh hijacked a helicopter and flew it into the prison yard in Dublin, California. Lopez climbed aboard. It became one of the most dramatic prison escapes in U.S. history. Their freedom lasted only 10 days before authorities tracked them down. Both received additional sentences, McIntosh for air piracy and aiding escape, Lopez for escape-related charges. The helicopter escape remains one of the most cinematic prison breaks ever recorded. Number 4. Susan Lefave in 1975. Susan Lefave was sentenced in Michigan to 10 to 20 years for drug-related offenses. After serving about a year, she escaped in 1976 by slipping through a fence to a waiting car driven by her grandfather. She fled to California and lived quietly under the name Marie Walsh for over 3 decades. She married, raised children, and had no further criminal record. In 2008, U.S. Marshals arrested her at her California home. Public sympathy followed. Many questioned the severity of her original sentence. Ultimately, the Michigan Parole Board voted unanimously to release her, noting her decades of lawful behavior. Her case sparked discussions about sentencing reform and second chances. Number 3. Sarah Jo Pender. Sarah Jo Pender was convicted in 2002 for her role in a double homicide in Indiana. She received a 110-year sentence in 2008 with assistance from a correctional officer who later admitted involvement. Pender escaped from the Rockville Correctional Facility using a prison vehicle. She fled to Chicago and lived under an alias for several months before being recognized and captured after a televised feature drew national attention. The correctional officer involved was prosecuted. Pender remains incarcerated in Indiana today. Her escape exposed vulnerabilities in internal prison oversight systems. Number 2. The Limerick Jail. Escape 1830. In 1830 Ireland, 9 women, one carrying an infant, escaped from Limerick Jail just hours before being transferred. Smuggled tools, including a file and acid, were used to weaken locks. Outside accomplices scaled the prison walls using maintenance ladders. Under cover of loud singing inside the prison, the locks were broken and the women descended over multiple walls to freedom. Historical records show several were later recaptured, though documentation from that era remains incomplete. This escape remains one of the most remarkable coordinated jailbreaks in Irish history. Number 1. Assata Shakur. Assata Shakur, born Joanne was convicted in 1977 for the murder of a New Jersey state trooper during a highway shootout. She has long maintained her innocence. In 1979, members of the Black Liberation Army carried out an armed prison break, freeing her from a New Jersey facility. She was transported to Cuba, where she was granted political asylum in 1984. In 2013, the FBI added her to its most wanted terrorists list. The first woman ever included and continues to offer a multi-million-dollar reward for information leading to her capture. As of the latest updates, she remains in Cuba. Her case remains politically sensitive and deeply debated decades later. And there you have it, 10 prison escapes that range from desperate acts to carefully orchestrated breakouts. Some of these women were quickly recaptured. Others built entire second lives. A few cases sparked reform discussions that continue today. Prison escapes aren't just about breaking walls, they're about the complicated human stories behind them. Fear, loyalty, mistakes, reinvention. If you found this deep dive compelling, let me know which story surprised you the most. And, as always, stay curious.